Today on In the Woodyard, Tony's back.
Uh-oh.
Today we're going to talk about
Splitters, part 1.
there's going to be a lot of parts to this because there's a lot to talk about. Here we go.
Before we start,
Yes.
you know, I know I'm your former best friend, but do you still trust me?
A little bit.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask, I want you to close your eyes and smell something.
No. My nose is all plugged up.
Oh, no, you got to do it.
Okay, I'll close my eyes. I closed. I'll try.
Right.
I'll try to smell.
Tell me what you're smelling now.
That actually smells good. Like car freshener.
Ah, well, since this is the only thing you use, gourmet pencils in different smells.
What?
Smell like smell. Remember your smell?
They're called. Oh, it's cinnamon.
That's it. You remember all your scratch and sniff books that you have in your house?
No, not so much.
That's it.
It does smell really good.
Yeah, there you go.
Where'd you get this at?
I thought of you because it was wood.
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah, it smells really good. It smells like cinnamon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
They had all different kinds of scents in it.
Saving trees one pencil at a time, made from 100% recycled newspapers. Well, I don't care about saving trees. It's the world's most renewable resource there is.
You got that right.
Nothing wrong with cutting trees down. They will grow back.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of people that get their underwear in a knot over that. Like, look, where these trees were, there's more growing right now.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be here long after we're gone.
For sure.
Okay.
So we're going to start off with what everyone starts with, and that's a box store splitter.
No.
No?
They usually start with an axe.
Let me back up. Yes. Most people start with an axe. You are 100% right.
And then you graduate to a maul, and then once you build up some muscles, you get good with them all, and then once you get really good with it, you start realizing you can't produce it much. I had a guy just yesterday on my channel, which for you guys it would have been like a week ago, because we're always about a week ahead, made a comment that he said, I use a maul because it's faster. I can split a round in like 20 seconds.
And they can.
Yeah, you can.
They can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I will challenge that guy anytime he wants. I'll have my splitter with a mountain of rounds to be split, and he can have his axe with just a pile, and I will finish the mountain before his pile, because I can go, as long as I can stay awake, I can keep splitting and splitting and splitting. I can do a full cord an hour pretty easy with my splitter.
Right.
A full cord for the average man, not a Superman, but an average man, he's going to be pretty much done for the day.
No doubt.
You can only go so fast for so long. Yeah, you can go fast for a short, brief period. Like, you know, I can run 100 yards pretty fast, but to do 100 yards 1,000 times in a row, I'm not going to last that long.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the reason I said a box store splitter was my first, we didn't use axes. You know, when we were doing it for the farmers and everything, they had a beat up old log splitter. And I do mean either a homemade one or, we can't get rid of them here, huh?
No.
Anyways, so that's the reason I said a box store splitter.
And the box store splitter doesn't necessarily have to be a brand new one.
No,
there's a lot of people that will buy a used splitter, especially if you're not selling wood. If you're producing wood just for yourself for heating purposes, that's all you need. You can spend $500–600 and get a splitter that's perfectly functional, that will do everything you need.
Even before, let's go all the way back, and that is to address what is the splitter for? To identify are you just doing home heating?
Right.
Are you just thinking of starting a small wood business with a roadside stand? What are your needs? And that's the question. And you start off, like you said, you've had Glacier. Kenny has had that tabletop splitter.
Well, that's an upgrade from what he used to have.
Well, and yet look at how much he did with those.
Right. Well, his oldest splitter that he has, the little green machine, Anne-Marie has that
Right,
now. That's
what I mean.
And she loves it because she can sit on a bucket and it's nice and low and she can move it around. It works great for her.
Well,
and for a lot of people, that's all you need.
Once again, identifying your needs, determining whether you want speed is important to you, or quality, or what is necessary for you to get into this business. Or not a business, just for, like I said, home use, for personal fire.
Right. I know a few people that have commented on the channel that they don't own a splitter, like a hydraulic splitter. They've got a little electric one.
Well, that's the other thing that we're going to come into
and you can
here.
get those for what, a few $100?
Well, yeah, you can go to Harbor Freight and they have them.
Yeah,
and that's a very quiet way of making kindling and everything else with those.
Right. Well,
that's something we're going to go through in the segment here. But I went to three stores this morning, kind of researching and looking at it. And what I'm looking at is a splitter that's what I consider entry level, anywhere from 800 to 1500.
Yep,
that's about level. What I'm looking at. So what you're looking at, and everyone, there's so many different versions of splitters, but you're looking at something between in the teens to about 25-ton hydraulic splitters.
Right, and that's something that's very deceiving because that is not regulated. They can put whatever number they want on there.
Their marketing department determines what the...
We'll put a big ram on there and we'll call that the 40,000 one. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's 40,000. Most splitters range from 15 to about 20,000, 15 to 20 tons. And that's all you really need. And it might say 35, but it's not 35.
No, and we all know that those numbers are fictitious.
Yes, they are.
You know, and I get it. And what I found is, after looking at labels on these things, how there's very little information on them.
Right.
You know, the number one, well, let me go back. When I'm looking at the splitters, there's really basically three types of splitters out there that I noticed for the entry level. The hydraulic splitters, which are by far the number one out there. Yep. Next on there was the kinetic splitters, and the third was the electric. So you got these three options there, and even kinetic splitters, they were usually above the $2,000 range, but they've come down dramatically. But I'm talking about brands that are not very popular or whatever, but you can still get a kinetic splitter that I found for $1,500. So yes, but couple of things with them. There's pro and con that we're going to discuss here. But with regards to that, let me get to the next one here. The benefits of the box store splitter. Easy to, you can go, in fact, the one, and I'm not going to name the retailer, when I went in there, they didn't have any splitters at all. And I said, where are you? Well, we kind of sold out on them and we're not going to be getting, and he says, to be honest with you, every time I sell one, 2 days later it comes back with a wheel that's fallen. And this is a guy telling me this, a salesperson from, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I checked that I checked that one off the list. But the other two, the other two big box stores that I went to, they had some in there, and they were in the anywhere from 22 to 35 tonnage.
Supposedly.
Supposedly, yeah. But the one thing about the hydraulic splitters, just like yours, they're easy to maneuver. You can bring the splitter to the wood instead of the wood to the splitter.
Oh, so however you want it. Yeah, they're easy to move.
They're easy to move.
That's huge.
There isn't too much, and the cost. You know, they're reasonably after your pickup truck or your chainsaw, the splitter is the next one, and that thing is $1,500. You could. The average person, if they're looking at selling stuff, they can recoup that. Even if you're slow, you can recoup that in a year, 2 years.
Oh, yeah, it'll pay for itself real fast.
But even if you're doing it for your home use, that's nice. And when you look at them, a couple of things when I was looking at them, only one out of all the ones that I looked at gave me a cycle time.
They don't want you to know.
They don't want you to know. But
slow.
Exactly. 14 seconds.
17 seconds, yeah.
14 seconds. As I went up in tonnage, the ironic part, as I went up in tonnage, the 35 was at 11 or 12 seconds. Yeah. You know, so the higher you went, the more speed you got out of it.
Right, which is fine for a homeowner, a guy that's gonna say,
look at you.
Yeah.
How many years did you use the Glacier?
Well, I actually had two Glaciers. The first one you never saw because they didn't have a channel yet. The first one I bought from Tractor Supply. I don't remember the County Line, I want to say. That
sounds right.
County Line, I think is what it was, is $900. And I used that until it was pretty much wore out. I mean, it still worked, but it wasn't as bad as the Glacier when you guys saw it at the beginning of my videos. So I probably had 1,000 face cords through it, and I paid $900 for it. I sold it for $650.
See, I can't even.
And I had it a year and a half.
I can't even believe the Glacier, what you did to that
really
thing.
abused.
And abused it. They should have bought that. The company should have bought that from you and put it out as an endorsement for their
Believe it or
product.
not, the Glacier was faster than my first one.
Really?
Yeah, it was like an extra second or two faster. But yeah, I used it a lot, and it worked fine. I sold a lot of wood. And
But tell me one thing, and that is when you bought either one, the first one or the second one, or actually go to the first one, what was your feeling when you went and you cycled that first one and split it? What did you think of compared
fantastic.
to?
With just whacking on a piece of wood with a maul?
Yeah.
Well, I still like to split by hand. I enjoy it, but my body doesn't like it as much as it used to. It's just hard on your body.
Yeah.
And you can only do it for so long. And my dad said to me, because I was starting to sell wood, he says, well, why don't you buy a splitter? Because he had one. And I said, well, I don't know if I really want to start doing wood on that level. That I think, and I love the exercise. He said, well, he says, you realize, he said, you can only split for an hour or two a day and you're going to be done. And I said, yeah, that's all I really want to do. Well, then I started selling wood. And then I started selling more wood, and then people wanted more wood. Like, well, okay, I'm going to get a splitter. So I bought the splitter, used it for about a year and a half, and it's like, I need to get something a little faster. So I didn't look at all the tonnage. I just wanted a splitter I could move by hand because I didn't have a tractor or an ATV to move it around. So I got one just a little bigger. I paid like $1,100 or $1,200 for the Glacier. And it was, like I say, a couple seconds faster. Like, ooh, I'm flying now. And it was still slow.
But yet, when you use that, I never knew what a commercial splitter was until 3 or 4 years after I started splitting with a box store.
Right.
And I got something that had a lift on it.
Oh.
And I thought, wow, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And then that time that I watched that ram go, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And that spoils you. The minute you see a commercial splitter on that, it really spoils a lot of people who do a lot of firewood.
Well, the thing for me that was huge, once I got to where the Glacier, and I was literally producing 600 face cords, so 200 full cords a year with a box store splitter. That's what I was producing. And I would stay a lot of nights till 8:30, 9 o'clock in the wintertime. So this is like January, February, 'cause that's when I would do all my wood. So it gets dark at 4:30. So I was splitting in the dark with a light for 4 or 5 hours. And I'd come home cold and tired, and it's like, I got to get something faster. So then I started doing research, and we'll get into all of that. But I started doing some math. And that's what I really did, is like, how much wood am I producing now if I got a splitter that was just twice as fast, not 3 times as fast, which is what I got? How much more wood could I produce? Because I was starting to make money doing firewood, and I wanted to reinvest it in a better splitter, better chainsaws, a dump trailer, a new truck, all the stuff. And I started thinking, you know, time is the one thing.
Well, that's one of the things that we were going to cover.
Time is the biggest thing.
There's 2 options when you're looking at a splitter: money or time. Which do you have more of? Usually when you're young or when you're just getting into the business, you have more money or more time than you have money. So like you were spending an hour to do a face cord, let's just say.
Yeah, that's what it took,
Yeah, an hour to do a face cord. Well, now you can do it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's the huge thing. Do you pay that much difference on a splitter? And a lot of people can't justify it at this point unless they go through the math like you did.
Right. Well, because I was I wanted to do more production. I wanted more time back. And time is the one thing we're all running out of. So
that's it.
I mean, time isn't ticking, your life is ticking.
That's it.
Time is, it doesn't have a value on it that most people have. But if you look at your life, like I do the tape measure thing, you've probably seen that.
Yeah.
You take a tape measure, average American male lives to be what, 76?
I think 74, 76.
So you
right in
look at that, and then you look at where you are, and you realize you're almost out of time. This is like, I want to do the things I want to do more efficiently.
Well, that's how come why do you need a splitter, a commercial splitter?
Yeah.
I want some time back.
That's what you're
I
getting.
want to be able to, I love splitting, so that it doesn't matter to me.
But it's more splitting when you can make more wood.
Correct.
So it's like, oh, I'm more of a man. Look how much more wood I made this time. Man.
That's exactly it. Now, your splitter before, your glacier, and these are the two different options that I noticed out there, is either the wedge is at the base or the wedge is on the ram.
Right.
The newer ones now primarily are all on the ram. The old style ones had this big old V gob of metal in the front of it, and it more or less just popped the wood, not split the wood.
Right.
And that's why splitting in the wintertime is so much better than splitting any other time of the year, because it's so much easier.
Right.
And the newer ones now, like I say, are all on the splitter knives. And that's what I also found out on the rams, between the tonnage between the 35 and let's say the 22 is the height of the blade too.
Right.
10 inches on the small one, 12 inches on the big one. And then looking at some of the options or accessories that are available. One, the little tables that you could buy, or they come with the little metal tables, and that's great.
Oh,
that is great.
That was another big improvement, is to have a table to drop your stuff, or when you're splitting a bigger round, to have the one half fall onto the table, so you can retain the other one without having to have it fall on the ground and pick it back up again.
Well, and a lot of people now watching the channels that are out there, having a table, like a banquet table, to stage your lumber. What a huge thing that is.
Yeah, that's going to be another game changer.
That's something that we'll be talking more of. But what I found was that most of them had Briggs & Stratton engines in them, which is a standard engine, tried and true. About 6 horsepower was the average that I found out there. And now the import ones may not come with a Briggs & Stratton, but something along those lines.
Yeah, I've seen a few that have Kohlers, but not many.
You start getting...
Kohler is more popular in this area because Kohler's just down literally down the road.
But Kohler was in the higher end. You go to the next step on a Kohler engine. Usually it's Briggs & Stratton, Kohler, and the Honda's the number one.
Or Vanguard.
Well, Vanguard
is the professional Briggs & Stratton. Right?
Exactly. But Honda, by far, if you talk to most people, that's the sought-after engine on that. So the other thing is, depending on which one you get, the standard is a horizontal, but the add-on was the pivoting conversion, so that you can sit on a bucket and split the wood.
And I did that when I was splitting big rounds. When I was in the woods, I took my splitter to my buddy's land, my old best friend.
The oldest best friend,
the oldest one, yeah. And we had some big oak trees we had cut, and there was like a lot of 24 to 32-inch rounds that back then I wasn't ripping the wood.
Right.
I was rolling it, and then I would tip the splitter up and then get it in place. I have found that if you sit on a bucket, even with a boat cushion sitting on it, for more than 5 or 6 hours, it's not comfortable. And you're still all hunched over. You're still on your butt gets sore. You're getting cramps in your legs because you're up and down. It's not efficient. It just isn't.
Even back then, going 10, 12 years ago, when I kind of got heavily into the wood, I knew that I want a vertical splitter. I knew that because my knees wouldn't take it anymore, kneeling on a boat cushion or whatever, as opposed to sitting, because even though I was sitting, I wasn't the right, and it really hurts your back.
You can only go for so long. It's fine for an hour.
Oh, for an hour,
and if you're a young person, 2 or 3 hours, but eventually you've had enough.
That's no doubt about it, is that the one thing about horizontal splitters too is they're all low. You find people, they have to put 2x4s or 2x6s and raise it up and everything else.
Well, unless you want to sit on a stool or a bucket and you're only going to split for an hour or two and you're not doing massive quantities. But if you want to do big production, you're going to want it higher. Now, my brother Eric has an old Spico that he bought years ago. And Spico is a brand that I'm sure all of you are, I don't know if it's a Chinese brand or if it's an American brand, but made in China.
I honestly don't know.
They make a lot of splitter parts and splitters for a lot of rebranded companies also. Spico is actually the company that makes a lot of them. So,
well, once again, just like power tools and everything, there's only so many factories in Asia, and which day is it, and was it morning or afternoon? Which
Right.
spray paint do we put on this particular tool?
Right.
And they may have one feature here, one feature there, but there's only a few companies that make these, and they're components. So.
And if you look, a lot of the same design.
Yep.
You're going to see the same type of rail, same motor mount, same ram, same wheels, same pretty much layout. Within a few little things might be different because it works.
Well, one other thing about splitters is it's just like they talk about handguns. Smith & Wesson made every man or woman equal. Same thing with splitter. Once you get a splitter, you're in a different league now.
Yeah.
You're able to compete in a different level, and you're immediately in the business when you get a splitter.
Or you're just someone that wants, like you say, wants to produce a little bit more wood, because say a lot of people that will buy a splitter, it's because they bought a new house or they got a cabin and they're going to heat with it.
Right.
Or they want more heat or supplement their heat. Or like in my dad's case, he bought a splitter, and then his buddy who heats his house with it, they would help each other do wood, and they would borrow it between each other. Well, eventually that guy bought it from my dad because my dad wasn't splitting anymore. And then a few times my dad says, well, if I ever want it, can I borrow it? The guy said, absolutely. So a lot of people will do that. They'll have it where they share it, because you don't necessarily need one all the time if you're not selling wood.
Or you just have a buddy who has one and just borrow it from him.
Like a guy who I know who has a car hauler.
Oh, is that it? Well, a couple of things. What to look for when buying, when shopping.
Yeah.
So, the number one thing that we both said was speed.
Yeah. Speed.
Look at the cycle time. And call the manufacturer if the salesperson doesn't know. Find out what it is. Because 2 seconds doesn't sound like much, but over 2 to 3 hours, it adds up to hours.
If that matters to you.
Yeah.
But if you just want to split your own wood for your own purposes,
True,
and you enjoy doing it, then it doesn't really matter.
No, that doesn't. But being men and everything, you always want something stronger and faster.
I know a few women that have splitters, and they like big, powerful splitters.
Well, that's
too,
true.
so.
This is not gender specific, so you're right.
And once you work your way up in trying different splitters from different people, you'll learn real quick what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's out there, because if you've never tried them, you don't know. You don't know. Like we always say,
you don't know what you don't know.
You don't.
Yep.
And I did when I first bought a splitter. It was like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And it's like, why would I even did a video once, a long time ago when I first had it. I said, I can't understand why somebody needs to go buy a 35-ton splitter that's $2,500. Why waste all that money? This splitter does everything it needs me to do, and I'm doing hundreds of face cords a year.
You were so tunnel vision back then. It was I'm not going to spend a penny more on this stuff. And
I was raised that way.
Exactly. No, and segues to the next thing we're going to talk about.
I was the kid that the mom made all of us wear bread bags on our feet over our good shoes in our buckle boots to go to school, because she didn't want our shoes to get ruined.
Once again, save, in the city, we did the same
twist
thing.
ties.
The galoshes, yes.
So.
Our families, yep. But the next topic, budget and price.
Yeah.
What do you want? And that's why we want to stay in the 900, 800 to 1,500. And even down the line, I was going to bring up the used, but you already brought that up.
You can buy used ones, yeah.
That $1,500 mark is a good baseline for kind of a higher end entry-level splitter. We covered the tonnage, the cycle time, 12 to 14 seconds. The one thing that they were talking...
In case you guys are wondering what's happening, we got kittens by us again.
They keep following us.
They were on the other side, now they're over here. And,
oh, God.
And she's moving them, so Mama Cat keeps coming and taking them. And
one at a time and moving them.
Over. That's what all the...
commotion is going on.
They're everywhere.
I noticed that when I say better, the more expensive machines, they have auto return on it, because on your Glacier, it was forward, backward. On these auto returns, which is nice, and that's a great feature to have.
Right.
Hit it forward, it goes forward. As soon as it hits the forward stroke, it comes by itself.
And then shuts
so you
off.
could be walking around grabbing another round of wood to load in the cradle.
Don't move your foot, you got a kitten right underneath.
Okay, I'm not moving my foot.
That's the last one.
Yep.
So
the other option was a log table.
Yep.
Some of them offered it as an option. Some of them came with it built in.
And in my opinion, get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay extra.
Either
and
pay
if you
extra.
can get one on both sides, get it.
Definitely.
You will use it. It's a game changer right there. Because I've used lots of splitters that had nothing, and you split a big round.
As soon as you split it, everything falls over.
Yeah, you're going to maybe catch one, but you can't catch both on a big round, and then you got to pick it back up again. Letting it fall onto that table, and then working your round in your hand as you're getting it, chucking the pieces, then getting the next one. Game changer right there. And if you can put an extension on it to where if you're splitting with someone, they can preload that table. That helps a lot.
Yep, yep. Boy, oh boy, are they noisy.
Well, there's only one left. She's got all four of the other ones over there already, so.
Well, the other thing on some of the lower end splitters is a 4-way wedge attachment.
Right.
Now that sounds like a great idea.
Yes.
However, it's a slip over the additional wedge right now. And the problem there is that when you have a bucked up piece of wood and it comes, it will hit that and sometimes just raise it straight up. So they're good, but your wood has to be specific.
Right. The other thing you got to think about, how many tons do you have? Will it go through?
That's it.
Because I have found generally the smaller splitters, you're better off with a single wedge.
Yes.
Because you can just piece it down. You can work on obviously nasty, knotty pieces that are hard to split. A single wedge for a small splitter is plenty good. And it's
agreed,
almost
100%.
As fast. Unless you've got all wood that's, say, this size right here.
Right.
Where you get rounds like that, then yeah, then you probably can pound through them if they're not full of knots.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
My thought is it sounds great, but you'll find you probably don't use it much unless you have something like that. The average cost I found on some of those, $160 on the 4-way slip over the top. Mm-hmm. So, and we already discussed the wedge on the ram or on the base, so we got that covered.
Right. And there was a splitter, and I've seen them before. There was one when we were at the Firewood Hysteria in Indiana. There was a guy there, and I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. He's the one that had his grandson there helping.
Right, with the pallet.
He had a splitter that went in both directions.
Right.
So he had a double knife on his.
That is a really cool
would go back and forth, so he could
brand.
split one way, move the log over, split the other way. That was cool.
Well, that takes into account all steps. So in other words, you work. There's a couple of box splitters that do the same thing, but they're much larger.
Right.
But the one that he had, yeah, it was 16 inches, 16 inches between splits. So by the time he went one way, there was 16 inches or 18 inches, I forget what it was, for you. And that really saves a lot of time when you think about it, because it doesn't have to come back. It's already back.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. And I've seen a couple other like that.
I have seen those, yeah.
So what do you want to talk about next?
Well, pros or the cons on some of these smaller units. And my thought is, any splitter is better than no splitter.
Absolutely.
I don't care how
the
slow
cheapest,
it is.
slowest piece of junk splitter you have is going to be split more wood than the strongest, fastest man in the planet.
I agree.
Over time.
I agree.
Yes, there are men that can split like maniacs if all their wood is staged for them, and they can just whack, 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 whack. And it's impressive to see that, and I've done it myself for videos with some creative editing. And but yeah, you can do that, but for how long?
That's it.
You can only go for so long, whereas that splitter will just keep going. You just put more gas in and keep going.
Well, we'll cover a couple of things on that here in a second, and that is the cons on some of these splitters. We said number one, slow. Slow. Did I repeat slow? I said slow.
I was born slow.
Yeah. Limited life, and I use that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because for the average person, it'll probably last a lifetime.
Yeah.
If it's someone like you, you're going to burn it out within a year to two, you know, and have to weld more of the metal ways on there. You're going to have to do some repairs, right? You're going to have to do repairs on it, especially.
All equipment's going to wear out.
Exactly.
And that's the other reason why you want to buy a really good splitter eventually, if you're going to do a lot of it, with a log lift, with all the bells and whistles, because these wear out, and these wear out, and these wear out. So it's all about making the machine do more for you so that you can save your body for all the other fun stuff. So
absolutely. limited power. And what I mean by that is that tonnage.
Yep.
It's not correct. So, yeah, you start getting into elm, you can kiss it goodbye. You know, if you can chunk out a little piece here and there, but it's tough. Yes, you can do it, and we have done it with the box store splitters, but it's...
Well, when I was a kid, Kenny and I were talking about how my dad got a lot of free elm because it was in the 70s when the Dutch elm disease was killing all the trees off. So we'd have neighbors all the time call my dad because he knew we heated with wood. Got an elm tree, it's Dad, do you want it? Of course. You know, and it would be a monster. And then we never had a splitter. We had a old style railroad hammer. So it's the long skinny
the little
head.
one with the...
Yeah, little bitty ends on it. And then a couple of really nasty beat up old wedges. Split it. Have it done before I get home from work. And that was it.
Well, I will tell you that the farmers that we split wood for, they all wanted elm.
That's good wood.
Well, the reason is it doesn't have a lot of ash at the end of it.
Oh, yes.
So that's what the farmer, because the farmer wasn't feeding the boiler, it was his wife that was doing it. So she didn't want to clean that. So the ash or the elm doesn't leave a lot, so they were happy with that.
Yeah.
So that was their wood of choice.
Yeah. Might be just because that's what they had, too.
Well, no. I'm talking about we had oak, huge oak, but they would take the elm over the oak any day.
Wow.
Really bizarre.
Maybe they were trying to get rid of you guys.
Maybe.
Because that's Satan wood.
Oh, it is.
It's like splitting cable.
We talked about the elevation on them. You know, they're all too low regardless. And we'll cover this in a second here, the electric splitters, those you can at least put on a table. And
yeah,
those
you want to have it be at a nice, comfortable working level.
And it's different for every person.
Right.
That's the one thing. Because you break your back on a lot of that stuff. And like you say, you can only do an hour. So we discussed cold weather splitting, ultimate. And for the body, it's the ultimate, and for the wood. The colder it is, the better it splits.
And the reason for that is, for those of you who don't know, is that there's a lot of moisture content in green wood when you cut it, and in wintertime that'll freeze, so when you go to split it, it's going to pop apart much faster.
Exactly.
And I had a guy ask me on the channel just the other day, what do you prefer, splitting, dry wood or green wood? Always green wood, because you've got that moisture in it, whether it's summer or winter, that moisture just makes the knife go through better. It's going to pop apart better. When you get dry wood, it's going to be shrunken down, tighter.
And
wood,
old wood is even worse.
Yeah, it's just really going to be tight, so it's going to be harder to split. So that's something you got to worry about.
And one other thing that's a real killer for the small splitters is they don't have a lot of hydraulic oil. So the problem in the summertime is you could have a lot of ambition, but if you're talking about 80 to 90 degree weather and you're splitting in it, the hydraulic will start boiling over, foaming out of the cap, and you got to stop.
Yeah.
So you can only maybe get an hour, 2 hours at best, maybe, depending, and then you got to stop and wait for it to cool down.
Which is why that one guy that was at the Hysteria had the, did you see the reserve tank he had for the hydraulic?
Huge, yeah.
That was a cool idea. He had a was it stainless, if I remember?
Stainless steel.
Stainless steel tank up above off to the side, so he had extra hydraulic fluid. Very good idea.
Once again, that's something that you don't think about, but if you're going to be splitting in the summertime, especially for your folks down south, major tips for the entry-level hydraulic splitters, and that is, I found a little secret. It's called a kindling cracker. Having that right next to your splitter so that when you split two, put one on, put one in the kindling cutter, and hit it with a hammer. You'll be much faster with the kindling cutter than your hydraulic splitter, and you'll be twice as fast.
Yeah, those
and
are
it's
handy.
an easy investment. The large ones are about $120 some or whatever, but boy, does it make you go fast.
Yeah, I've had a lot of my customers show their kindling cracker to me when I get like, oh, I bought this kindling cracker, isn't this great? And they show me how it works. Yeah, I've seen them thousands of times. They want to show me, and I got like, yeah, those are good. You're gonna like that. It's like, I just got it for my birthday, and they're all proud. And that's great.
Yeah, they are awesome, and that's just a real cool tip that'll make you much faster and more efficient. So we're kind of at the end of our entry-level splitter conversation here, and the next step we're going to talk about, not on this video, but on the next video, is commercial splitters.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about them as to why you would get one. because they are awesome, and I do recommend them highly. Time is the biggest thing.
Yes.
They're so much faster. When I bought my Easton Made Ultra, the first or second time I was splitting with it in the wintertime, I came home and it was like 6 o'clock instead of being 9 o'clock at night. My wife said, I thought you were going to split wood tonight. I said, I did. She said, well, how come you're home so early? Normally you go till like 9 o'clock. I said, I split it all because it was 3 times as fast.
Yeah.
Instead of doing one face chord or a third of a chord an hour, I was doing a full chord an hour by myself.
It is amazing how much time you gain from a commercial splitter, but you're talking the difference between $1,500 and $5,500, or somewhere in between there. And if you go even to the next step, you're naturally talking $10,000 and above.
Right,
So,
and when we talk about commercial splitters, there's different kinds, obviously. There are kinetic splitters, which are up above that entry-level type splitter.
Yes.
And those are great, but they're not for everybody because they don't work well on all kinds of wood. They're great for resplits. They're very fast. I saw one that Heath has, hardworking man, that new one he's got. It's like a 1 second cycle time. It was scary looking on the video, and if it looks scary on the video in person, I'd probably have to wear a diaper to run that thing because I know what speed is, and that was unbelievable.
For me, when I first saw it, I saw the first brand that I saw that came out was DR Mowers came out with one. And I looked at that, and I was afraid. I was afraid of getting my hands caught in that thing. And what do? I go ahead and get an Axis, which is a vertical in my, but when I looked at that kinetic splitter, I go, I could get myself in trouble with this thing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of looked at that. But after I saw them, you just like any other piece of equipment, you just have to have your head in the game. You can't be daydreaming when you're dealing with a kinetic splitter or virtually any splitter for that matter, just like a chainsaw.
When I got a faster splitter, my dad said, well, man, there's a reason they make these splitters slow so you don't get hurt.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, but I want to produce more wood. Well, you better be careful.
Yep. Well, in Chicago, where I lived originally, the big manufacturers of firewood, and I'm talking the big ones in Chicago and the neighboring suburbs, all used power splits or what's the name?
Super split?
No, the blue one.
The buggy one.
Yeah, the buggy.
Yeah, well, power split. I think it's
power split. Yeah. Anyways, they were all using double station, and at that time they were using the 4-way. Most of them do not sell the 4-way, but it was the power splits, and I thought, man, now there's a machine. That is just unbelievable to watch them. And then after that, then everyone came out with the box splitters. And all different versions of it and everything else, and then the market exploded within the last 10 years. It's been about 10 years that they really exploded, because it's like anything else. The retail price on something people couldn't take. And people wouldn't want to pay for it, but it was perfect timing where everyone got involved in it and commercial splitters just took off.
I think a big part of the reason it became okay to spend that kind of money on a commercial splitter is that there's a lot of people that heat with wood, and a lot of people that heat with wood, for the most part, in my experience, the ones that I sell to are not young people.
Right.
It's people
the baby boomer
50
generation
and above.
Yeah.
And they're at the point in their life, number one, where they don't have a lot of time. They do have some money, and they enjoy it. And they're like the 40-year-old or 50-year-old guy going through his midlife crisis. Instead of buying a red sports car, they buy some good power equipment. And they're like, dang it, I'm going to get a good one.
But you know what? That has changed within the last 3 to 5 years. Take a look at all the channels of people now that are younger that are buying them.
Yeah.
They're seeing the investment in something like that.
Well, that's the other big thing. The payback. That's the huge. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about.
The return on the investment.
Resale. Yeah. I know so many people that have bought, whether it's a dump trailer or a really good wood splitter or a really good professional chainsaw, that decided to either switch brands or upgrade or just buy a new one, and they sell their old one thinking, you know, get what you can get, and they're like shocked at how much value was retained, especially in certain brands.
Oh, no doubt.
You know, something that they spent, just to pick a number, they spent $5,000 on, and they're thinking, you know, they had it 2-3 years, whatever it was, and then they go to resell it, and they're thinking, well, it's probably worth half the value. But then they go and they look like, no, it's worth just as much because the price went up. It's a highly desirable item, so the price actually stayed.
Well, that's
where you bought it. Like, you can't go wrong.
That's what happens when you're buying equipment now, is the brand generates the resale value on some of that stuff.
And because that brand is a higher quality brand.
Correct.
And there are lots of different brands that have retained that high dollar amount as far as the resale. So, and that's what you want. That's what you want.
Yep.
I'd much rather spend a lot of money on something that's going to hold its value than to spend a little money to lose most of it.
And that's your analogy of, I bought it for $1,000, I have to sell it for $500, because that's the standard of what was out there.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that philosophy is out the door. Right. You can actually get more money for what you've got.
In a lot of cases.
If you got a good quality.
In a lot of cases. And that's kind of why we're doing some of these chit-chats like this, these Woodcasts, to talk about our experiences, because we're kind of in the mix here as far as talking with other people, their experiences, and because we've gone through a lot of trial and error and made mistakes, to share them with you guys, that when you're looking at equipment, you know, kind of know what to look for, what questions to ask, what not to do, that kind of stuff. So hopefully it'll help everybody.
Well, that's the name of the game. Is we're fortunate is that we travel enough around and see a lot of people's products that we can offer a good opinion on some of this stuff, and hopefully we offer a value for you and our honest opinion on what this is.
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier today. We were talking about when we do reviews, is that you have to be brutally honest.
Yes.
And don't sugarcoat something just because you're being endorsed or paid. I actually don't really want to be endorsed or paid.
Right.
I mean, I would like it, but I don't want to be beholden to someone to have to say
that their product is good
great when it's not, or to cover up the flaws. I want to be honest with people enough that when I say something, this is what happened, good or bad.
Well, we only have our integrity, because we can lose that quickly.
Yeah, and that's easy to be bought nowadays.
Yep, that is true.
I say I never want to be bought, even though I can be bought.
Yeah, I know.
No, even if I would have someone that would, say, for instance, sponsor me, I would still point out their flaws, what I don't like, because there's always going to be something.
Something that either can be enhanced or something that is an issue that you can bring to the company.
Right, right.
Because one of the things coming from a manufacturing background is our customers were the ones that found all the issues,
problems,
regardless of how many product managers and how many focus groups we put on a product. It was the customers that found all the issues with it, and in a short period of time.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's the thing, and they're our best customers.
So I think that's it for this one. We're going to do another one on commercial splitters, and we're going to have a lot to talk about with that. That'll happen, I don't know, next time or the time after, but we'll get to that one. So that's it for today, folks. Poke the Buttons. We'll be back 5:30 tomorrow morning with another video. It won't be this guy. It'll be something more fun.
Oh, Miss Irene, good night.
Good night.